So if you'll just accept that the recording has now started, we can begin. I want to welcome Ronnie from Seattle. Esther, it's good to see you back. And we will begin. And as I line up the slides, I am going to say that I don't know about you, but the thought of doing a class on finding happiness after a week like the week that we are having feels like a challenge, feels like a heavy lift. I am hoping that the Torah that we find and the Torah that we share together tonight will, in fact, help us just increase a little bit the quotient of happiness that we are able to glean, even when we are being so very, very challenged. But I would not want to go blithely hopping into the class without acknowledging that we are at a difficult time. And before we begin tonight's substantive learning, I'm going to be inviting us to dedicate our learning to lift up our learning to create greater goodness in the world. So you can be thinking as of now about how and to whom you want to dedicate your learning tonight. So this is class 3 of the Finding Happiness series. It's also a bit chutzpahdik to think that we're going to find happiness in 4 Zoom sessions, but this is more a course that is inviting us to stand outside of ourselves, to evaluate and to tweak and to renew our ideas. Everything that we are learning is the beginning of practice and the beginning of things that we can actually do, but we have to begin with the idea. And hence 4 Zoom classes of ideas and all the rest of our lives into which, if we wish to put them into practice. Let's meet the teachers. On the left is Arthur Brooks, who is the happiness consultant for The Atlantic magazine. He's a scholar at Harvard. For the early part of his life, he was not a scholar, nor was he at Harvard. He played the French horn professionally. And then his life took a turn, and he took a turn with it. He is one of our teachers, and the purpose of this course has been to compare and contrast, mostly compare his teachings with the teachings of the character here portrayed as a gentleman with a long, long beard. We do not know what the author of the book of Ecclesiastes, the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, actually looked like. Personally, I look at the Hebrew word for Ecclesiastes, which is Kohelet. It comes from the word that means to gather together. And I notice that that is feminine in its form, and it makes me think, But Kohelet is mostly portrayed as a man because of the mentions of King Solomon in the book. So this is ancient Jewish wisdom from a long time ago. Ecclesiastes is a contradictory book. I feel that I should be honest about saying that I'm quoting a little selectively for the purposes of this course. There are contradictions within the book. Then again, selective quotation is the foundation of most rabbinic learning. So I feel a little bit bad about it, but not too bad. I feel I'm well within the framework of our tradition here. And the third set of teachers who we're learning from are each other. Because in a wisdom class, we come to it with wisdom already to share. So further down the class, we're going to be going out into breakout rooms, and the invitation is to share your wisdom. A little bit of admin, please go ahead and pop your name and your location into the chat. We have 2 classes left, tonight's and next week's class. You can find the previous classes if you weren't at them, although most of you were, on YouTube, on the IKAR channel on YouTube. I do suggest that you have writing materials with you so that you can journal and capture the wisdom that is being shared in the class if you wish. And I'll remind us that we use multiple modalities in the class. So there's going to be times where I am talking. I'm going to be talking us through a few slides. We will be in a group. Comments can go into the chat line. Glad to see people greeting. Lovely, just checking. And you can always be commenting in the chat line. I actively invite commenting while I'm speaking, and I'll stop the slides periodically and take questions and open it up for a bit of discussion. We're a small enough group to be able to do that. I like to include some time for personal reflection in every class. That's for you to journal in ways that do not need to be shared with the rest of the class, but a modality for you capturing your own wisdom. And then, as I said, we break out into small groups so that we can encounter each other. For those of you who are familiar, these are our touchstones, but let me just run through them again. This is a confidential space so that we can be honest with each other. I invite us to be present as fully as possible. I recognize that at this time of the day, we don't all want to be on camera. That is okay, but I do invite us to be on camera if we can, and certainly in breakout rooms, I think we need to be on camera. In terms of how we interact with each other, I know that everybody in the room is wise and can do this, that we speak our truth in ways that respect that other people might have a different truth, and that is okay. This is neither a debating society nor a negotiation. We're not necessarily aiming for consensus. We're aiming to share wisdom. It often helps to respond with questions. It's interesting you should say that. Can you tell me a bit more about what you mean? Is an invitation into greater depth and greater intimacy, as opposed to I agree or I don't agree, or I don't know if I agree or I don't agree. Yeah, all 3 of those in their different ways are shutdowns. So I invite us to keep the channels open. And this last one is important. We are not here to fix each other. We are not here to save each other. We are not here to advise each other. We are not here to correct each other. We're holding ourselves open to each other as we enter into this rather challenging work of addressing our own preconceptions about what happiness is and inviting ourselves to consider it in a more expansive way and to hopefully come out with a sense of how we might better and more graciously and more wisely attain it, or some of it, for the people around us and for others as well. So with that, let me pause for a moment so we can see each other, and invite us to dedicate our learning. Invite us to, a dedication can be for a sad purpose or a happy purpose. It can be for a person or for groups of people. And we're a small enough group for us to unmute and share our dedications rather than dropping them in the chat. So I can see a couple of people have already done so, but I invite you to unmute and share your dedications as well. so that we can hear. And this serves also to lift up what is most on our minds at the moment.
Well,
So
I'll just say that I looked at what Ronnie had written, and that would be exactly what I would have wanted to write. I know people who are just hiding out right now.
yeah,
And it's so scary.
yeah. So to all of our people in Israel, our rabbinic intern is in Israel at the moment as well. We've been staying in touch with him. Rabbi Panitz is in Israel, and we've been staying in touch with him too. And we have been we've been doing our best to reach out to friends, relatives, families in Israel, and we center them in our intention and in our prayer and in our learning. Ronnie, I am seeing yes to all the immigrants who are afraid right now. Once upon a time, we were all immigrants, and I think many of us also feel a kind of, if not a primary fear, a more primeval fear of being hunted, of being held in disdain, of being thrown out. So we notice how much our own emotions are under strain right now. And again, I notice how all of us are gathered in this room tonight, nonetheless, to try and seek greater wisdom about how to live. And that feels truly sacred to me. Are there other dedications? Do people want to unmute and share?
To all those who are affected by war, wherever it is.
Amen.
Because unfortunately, we have other wars going on.
We do. We do. Thank you, Susan. Yes. Any more?
Well, I had written, oh, I'm sorry, who else is?
Let's do Joel and then Rachel.
Oh, sorry. You can.
You should, may I share that the nature of the relationship between you two, because people might not know that. Okay,
We're
They're
married. We're
Yeah.
married.
they're married to each other.
Yeah, and you put us in the same chat room last time. That was
Yes, I
She's
know.
she's in her study and I'm in my study. I wanted to dedicate it. Obviously a terrible time in the world, but sort of simultaneously with all the terrible things, there are good things going on. Yesterday, our two twin grandchildren, who are just 10, flew down with our son, and they started Camp Ramah in Ojai yesterday. So I would dedicate it to them, that maybe they could learn something good about Jewish values and have a good experience.
Amen. Amen. And what are their names?
Arik and Seika. Arik is the boy, Seika is the girl. They're boy and girl, 10-year-old twins.
How lovely.
Just finished fourth grade. Yeah.
How lovely. Ramah is a great place. Oh, and Karen is saying her daughter is on staff at Ramah as well. Good. Small world. Small world. They will find each other. That's the way that Ramah goes. Lovely. Any other dedications? Ilan, I see you, and Razel, I haven't forgotten you. Yes, Ilan.
I want to dedicate it to my grandmother, Lydia's mom, who played a large role in my Jewish identity, and also my new dog, who's in the other room, who I just adopted yesterday.
And we need names for both of these.
My grandmother was Sarah Liminis, Lydia's mom, and my dog's name is Canelo.
Camilo.
Canelo. Canelo means cinnamon.
Oh, Canelo.
Yes.
Canelo. Wonderful. Welcome, Canelo. You're a very lucky dog, as we say in the phrase, and welcome. Lovely when people adopt pets. Any more dedications? Any more?
Well, I had said earlier, I had written it earlier about, I have over 150 relatives in Israel, and I have friends there as well. And we have a group chat. And, you know, hearing about it directly, it's kind of overwhelming. The talking about the distinctions between the different types of safe houses they have to choose between, which is safer. I forget the name of the one. I'm sorry, I've forgotten all of a sudden the names of the two different ones. They start with M, but one is a Mamid, is it? No.
Mud, yeah.
Mom. And then the other one I can't remember, but if you go to the other one, then you have to run outside, but it's a safer thing. You know,
Oh,
talking
it's
about
tough.
hiding underground places, you know, it's
very hard.
yeah.
It's very, very hard. And it does bring it home to us when it's a connection like that, when it's that personal. Yeah, it absolutely brings it home. And we are all of us under strain. And we are all of us, whether we're conscious of it or not, I think we're praying all the time at the moment. One way or the other, we're praying. We're saying help, or we're saying thanks, or we're saying wow. But one way or another, at the moment, we're praying. Okay, so let's for a moment gather all of those intentions. I truly do believe that study changes us, and by changing us, it changes the world. So let me share my screen with the blessing, and I'll invite us to read along together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Praised are you, Eternal One, Spirit of the world, who has made us sacred with obligation and commanded us to become involved in matters of wisdom. That's how I would translate that for the purposes of tonight. So, briefly, last time, we introduced ourselves to the skill that Brooks calls metacognition, and which Ecclesiastes sets out as their mission statement. I set myself to learn about wisdom. I set myself to learn about thinking. And we spoke about how, we spoke about the power of thought to change reality. Hamlet, again, there is nothing good or ill, but thinking makes it so. And we then turned our attention towards the process of our own thoughts, specifically to the idea that we do not have to be the victims of our own emotions. We looked at a diagram of the brain, and we gained a better understanding of where it is that these powerful waves of emotion come from. And we noted that we can engage this lumpy bit of our brain up here in the front, the frontal cortex, to get a greater distance from our emotions so that we can be wiser about them, and also so that we gain a greater sense of our own agency and power over them. And I don't think I need to underline, in the reality in which we're living, how many, many, many times a day we are confronted by unmitigated emotions of whatever kind. And to expose ourselves to a practice like this, and to want to master this degree of detachment is, says Brooks, says Ecclesiastes, one of the keys that can unlock greater potential for happiness. Just briefly to revise, you were either at the class or can watch it on YouTube. The strategies are that we observe or journal our emotions. We choose a better emotion. Remember, his analogy was caffeine, that we can plug something else into the receptors rather than what is smushing around there. We conjure up positive memories. We spoke about the ego boo file, remember, and being able to expand the field around the emotion that we're feeling. And also we can do that by looking for meaning and for learning. And I promised you at the end of last class that the power of metacognition is that we can manage our emotions. They do not have to manage us. And once we have cleared that space, as it were, we then create a bit of spare bandwidth to go more deeply into, to admit at a deeper level, the forces that are going to build happiness. I have held you in suspense for 2 and a bit sessions about what those forces are, according to Brooks, and they're in Ecclesiastes as well. Here is what they are. We build what matters. We put our energy towards building what matters. Family matters. Friendship matters. Work matters, not in the way that we might think, but in a sense of giving us purpose. Work matters, and faith matters. That doesn't mean that we have to believe that God is an old man in the sky. It means that having conviction is a way towards happiness. And so this evening we're going to turn our attention away from ourselves and towards these 4 forces of happiness. And I'll stress, by the way, that this is just Brooks's formulation that resonates with 4 key themes in the book of Ecclesiastes. Other sages, other wise ones might pick 4 different ones, or 4 that are related but not exactly the same. However, for clarity, it is good to be able to have 4 to focus on. And we are already, as Jewish people, very practiced in things that come in groups of 4. It's a bit of a magic number for us. Think of the Pesach Seder. And 4, of course, is the number of stability. 4 legs, 1 at each corner of a table, or 1 at each corner of a dog, for that matter, and so on. So these are the 4 that that I'm offering, that I'm putting out there for us to consider as places where we can realistically invest our intention and our energy for the purpose of making ourselves happier. There's one more mental shift that we need to make. We didn't talk about it last time. I want to talk about it now. It prefigures all of these. So the metacognition is the idea that we're able to lift up our thoughts above, expand the field, shift our perspective, but also it's the idea of turning away from ourselves and towards others in ways that are nourishing and healthy. There's this sort of very ancient wisdom, I think, that amounts to, in its various forms, if you want to feel better, go and do something nice for somebody. But mastering the art of not getting trapped in our own minds and our own feelings, but instead moving our attention outside of ourselves, is also a happiness skill. There's a separate chapter on this in the book by Brooks, and I'm not going to be doing it justice, but I do want to make sure it's on our radar. Reliably, we can increase our potential for happiness by doing something for someone else or for some other creature. Yeah, by doing, in Brooks' wording, do something for someone else. In our more shorthand Jewish wording, maybe do a mitzvah. Do a mitzvah, interrupt the flow of negative thoughts and negative energy by turning outwards and not inwards. That's one strategy. Second strategy looks easy, takes practice, but we are allowed to care less about what other people think of us. And one of the strategies that Brooks suggests, and I'm fascinated by this, is to try living without mirrors for a week. Actually living without looking at our own reflection. Because what happens is that we take into ourselves other people's judgments of us. And you know what it's like? We've all done it. We stand in front of the mirror. We make the special mirror face that we only make when we are standing in front of a mirror. And then we start poking at ourselves. Yeah, and he suggests as an experiment, and I want to offer it, and I have to say it fascinates me as possibly a practice for the month of Elul, as we're leading ourselves into the work of the High Holy Days. What would it be like to live for a week without mirrors? So I'm plopping it out there for us to consider. And similarly, but not quite the same, he says, don't water the envy weed. This harks back to when we were talking about success in the first session. But as soon as we start measuring ourselves against others, the sooner we're going to be miserable. Even if we measure, remember Ecclesiastes' wisdom, even when I realized I sat with all my riches, I realized that I had the most, and I had singers, and I had choirs, and I had donkeys, and I had camels, and I had, it's even when you're sitting in with abundance, it is possible to feel envy. And one of the metacognitive skills for greater happiness is to move our attention away from that. One of the easiest ways to move our attention away from that is to stop thinking about ourselves and go and do something good for somebody else. Okay, so if we're beginning to assemble a kind of strategy for this practice of interrupting the processes that make us unhappy and moving ourselves towards a stage where we can have some power to make ourselves happier, there's the stepping back and the widening of the perspective, the metacognition, and there's the shifting of focus away from ourselves and towards the other. Okay, so far? I know that was a big information dump, so let me pause for comments. Sarah, I see you. Yes, speak to us. But you have to unmute.
Yeah, I will. So I've been quite connected with 12-step programs for a long time, particularly I've been sober for 35 years, but have lounged poolside at some other places, and like Al-Anon. And one of the things that that it can be a danger is there's one great line, which is that they use a lot. Don't give away. You can't give away what you do not have, right?
Mm.
And if so, part of what that means is that some people get kind of addicted to helping other people. Like they just have to. They can't focus. They can't focus on themselves. They're willing to like leave their own house a mess to go over and help somebody who's sick. And I came to see that tendency sometimes in myself as almost a kind of grandiosity. And and it comes from that inability of being able to just feel whole and good of yourself. So I'm just wanted to state that it can be compulsive behavior.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's to be fair to both Brooks and Ecclesiastes, I think that's not what they're getting at, but you're right. And I think it lifts up for us this sense of being able to stand outside ourselves and assess and be able to question ourselves and say, okay, why am I? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this really? So again, the ability to, as you just said, the strategy of taking a step back and not being dragged along by the forces of habit and such. Thank you. Yes. Rachel.
Very, very briefly, I loved an expression. I grew up Orthodox, and my mother raised the 5 children with the expression, run to do a mitzvah. And that's always been a very tender memory for me, and it's deeply in me. Given what was just said, of course, is a different, to a different extent, but in general, the idea of running to do a mitzvah, does push as you said, I mean, it takes the focus from outside of yourself, and always, especially as children, you're thinking about yourself a lot. So just wanted to share that memory.
Thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. And it is good to know as we sort of move ourselves forward into this new skill set, it's good when it resonates with something that is part of our existing skill set, part of our existing upbringing. It makes it more straightforward to learn. Thank you. Elon wanted a look at the metacognition slide again. There we are. So this is the idea, that being able to stand away from our emotions. And I want to say, by the way, that just because we're learning this off a slide in a class on a random Wednesday evening does not mean that we will all walk away from the class imbued with the magical power to do it, right? What we're committing to here is more the work of change and the work of changing our habits. Yeah. So in that sense, the slide is aspirational. But the idea, I think, especially in modern, in the culture in which we live, where there is, I think, an assumption that we are to be swept away by extremes of emotion, whatever they are. When we fall in love, we're to be swept away, and when we're when we're hungry or when we're thirsty, we won't be able to resist a pint of Haagen-Dazs, and that's not true. We do not have to be constantly piloted around by the feeling brain. We can bring our own wisdom, our own intelligence to bear and say, just wait a minute, we can create that. Rabbi Brous gave a sermon about it not so long ago, that space in which we pause and in which we reassess. And in that space is the potential for becoming happier. Yeah. And it also means, thank you, Ilan, for the segue again. It also means that we can free up more energy to invest in the things that have a greater chance of making us happy. Family, friendship, work, and faith. Okay, notice they're all outside of us. Yeah, nothing, and they're all, in a sense, outwardly focusing our energy. And I don't think that is a coincidence. I am going to begin with the most, well, I don't know, you might not find this your most challenging one. It's interesting, isn't it, to look at that and think, which is the one that makes me go, oh, Lord. But we're going to begin with family. Here is Ecclesiastes, somewhat liberally translated by me. The idea that we build a reality with a companion whom we love. Of course, Ecclesiastes is biblical, it says woman. Yeah, the assumption being that this is marriage and it's going to happen between a man and a woman and the family is going to be raised. We know that none of those are givens, but the idea that happiness comes from being in relationship, and that has value, that has a lasting value to get out of life and out of what we acquire under the sun, the idea of that goes deep. And of course, the first laboratory of relationships for any human being is our family. Okay. Here is a truth, I think, about family. When am I happiest? When I'm with my family. When am I unhappiest? Same. I think it points to the way that we learn to be human beings. Our first teachers are our family. And that is a challenging proposition because, as you all know, but I will remind you, we don't choose our family. Family is a set of relationships that, if you want, gets thrust upon us. But it also creates the possibility of learning how to move through challenge in relationship, because realistically, if we're going to be turning outwards to look for happiness, it is entirely realistic to imagine that we're going to be encountering challenge, because we are moving away from being turned towards self and outwards towards being turned towards other. And those two might not be completely congruent. Yeah, I know I'm stating something that is absolutely obvious, but I want to make sure that the terms and the parameters are clearest. So what Brooks suggests, and we will do a little bit of journaling now, what Brooks is going to suggest is that we bring our metacognitive skills to this most difficult of laboratories, that it is possible to shift even relationships with our families. Let's start with a journaling prompt. Yeah, this is not for sharing. This is purely for journaling. But see what happens if you turn to a clean page in your journal and break out happiest with family, unhappiest with family. Just see what it looks like when it comes out on the page. It can be a memory of an event, or it can be a note of an emotion. But see if both of these exist for you simultaneously. Happiest with family, unhappiest with family. Just another couple of minutes more on that one. Let me ask you to finish the sentence you're on in the knowledge that this is an exercise that you can come back to because there is going to be more. Yeah, there is going to be more. But what I want to offer is, as you look at the column, and again, not for sharing, if you look at the column that says, you know, unhappiest, what I would like is to ask you to evaluate whether any of the strategies of dealing with one's imperfect family, because in the words of my wonderful friend Tammy, who is a psychoanalyst, families are supposed to be impossible. It's their job. I invite you as you sit and look at that column of, well, these are some times where it's really not worked well with my family, whether any of these strategies might have worked to unlock or bring some expansiveness into that tight place. Once again, you see, this is metacognition. This is the being able to bring the wisdom of standing back to the into the tightness. Yeah, same strategy, same. Brooks will tell you, same pathways in your brain. Okay. So let me just enumerate what they are and then give you a moment to journal again to see if any of them could work as keys. And again, it's really important to me that when we're doing this work, it's not for sharing. There will be a sharing exercise further on, but this is deeply, deeply personal stuff. Please know that I know that, but it's precisely because it's deeply personal stuff that these are possible keys that I want you to be able to have in your hands, okay? Imperfect family strategy number one is to not try to read someone's mind. A lot of tension can arise when you've got two people thinking that the other person is feeling something. They may be feeling it, they may not be feeling with it. And when we proceed on those assumptions, that's where conflict can arise. So rather than trying to read the mind of your sister-in-law sitting across the table, step back, ask. That's strategy number one. Strategy number two, relationships evolve. The parent-child relationship when the parent is 25 and the child is 5 is not the same and shouldn't be the same as the parent-child relationship when the parent is 65 and the child is whatever my hopelessly unmathematical brain gives us the number for the adult child. What would that be, 45? I think it was a 20-year difference. Relationships evolve. We know this with our other relationships. We know this with friendships. We know this with relationships with colleagues. And yet somehow put us back around the Pesach Seder table or the Thanksgiving table. And suddenly we're all reenacting the original composition of our family dynamic. We don't have to do that. Yeah, a parent and child relationship can look very different. A sibling relationship can look very different. Yeah, think of all the sibling stories in the book of Genesis, where siblings are estranged and then come to recognize that they're not the same people that they were. So relationships evolve. Forgiveness will always work. If it doesn't work to repair the relationship, it will still work for you to be able to stand back and reframe it. I am not saying, let me be very clear here, I am not saying, God forbid, that if a family member did something terrible to you, you should say, oh, Arthur Brooks said I should forgive them. It's not that. But it is forgiveness as a distancing and self-enhancing strategy. In those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words is the message of the whole of the High Holy Days, in a way. The letting go. The letting go. It's always an option to let it go. Yeah. His fourth suggestion, this is all Brooks, his fourth suggestion is to try to stay honest. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. And his fifth is don't give up. Just like you are not going to walk away from tonight's class with, oh, right, I'm going to implement all 5 strategies and then that'll fix it and then it'll move on. All of these are practices. All of these are skills, we acquire them over time, and we don't give up, we chip away. With families, most of all, I think, we chip away at the ways that the relationships have hardened until we create greater space in which to be a little bit happier around these people whose job it is to drive us mad. And I want to pause for a moment and stop sharing and say once again, this is not, I hope that this doesn't sound glib because it is being delivered as 5 points on a slide. I would be doing both teachers an injustice if that were the case. Yeah, there is deep wisdom here. But it needs to be practiced. Okay, so I hope that nobody is feeling that I'm sending us all away with, oh, we'll just go and do those things and then everything will be fine. Because we know that being a real human being is not like that. But these are, I offer them in the spirit of the Rabbi of Kotsk, who said, why does it say in the Shema that you should put these things on your heart? And his answer is, you have to put them on your heart because when the time is right, your heart will crack open and then the wisdom will fall in. So the points are like that. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for your understanding. Let's do something a little bit more interactive with the friendship piece. So I have to tell you what Ecclesiastes has to say about friends. I wonder if somebody would read, actually, so that we get a change of voice. Who's up for reading out loud? Marlin, have at it.
Thank you for the honor. 2 are better off than 1. They have greater benefit from their labor. For should they fall, one can raise the other. But woe betide one who is alone and falls with no companion to raise them. Further, when 2 lie together, they are warm. But how can one who is alone get warm? Also, if one attacks, 2 can stand up to them, and a 3-fold cord is not quickly broken.
Just let me know with a little thumbs up or something if you've come across this last line before, the one about the threefold cord. Has anybody come across that one before? Because if you haven't, I am delighted to bring it to your attention. Yeah, the threefold cord. If you braid 3 pieces of string, they're stronger than each of them individually. They're even stronger if you than if you hold the pieces of string together and pull. Yeah, there's something about the being intertwined. There's something about the keeping each other warm. There's something about the you fall down, I raise you up, and the mutuality of that that has the capacity to bring us much, much closer to happiness. And I almost wanted to put that one first because I think it's the easier proposition. And maybe when you choose how you're going to follow up on your work in this class, this is the starting point. This is where we begin.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Yes.
So on that last one, on the threefold cord is not quickly broken. What's the threefold? It's the one person plus another person plus the 2 of them together. Is that what you're saying?
I think what he's saying, if you look at that and just imagine the scenario, the little story behind it. So you've got 2 friends walking along the road, all right, and then they get set upon by a bandit or somebody Talmudic. The Talmud is full of bandits, all right. But something happens where that semicolon is. I think if you look at it as a little narrative, then something has happened whereby the animosity has been overcome. And the 3 of them kind of disappear off into the sunset together. That's how I've always read that verse. I'm not sure. It's a very midrashic kind of reading, Joel. It might just be that, one person is an attacker, 2 people are defenders. And if you've got 3 people, well, you're home and dry. Yeah, you've got one to your left, like in the words of Rabbi James Taylor, one to your left and one to your right. Yeah. But I like to read that one as a little story of how friendship comes out of adversity. Does that make sense?
Okay, sounds fine.
Good, good.
But
So, yeah, Sarah, yeah,
I'm sorry, I just am a compulsive Googler, right?
right.
I just Googled the threefold cord,
Uh-huh.
and it referenced as God's knot, symbolizing the strength and resilience found in unity, particularly in the context of marriage. It represents the joining of 2 individuals, the bride and groom, with God, and it's that God is the third is the third part.
Oh, that's rather lovely.
Yeah.
It's there in the Talmud as well, that there are 3 parts to a human being. Male, female God, masculine, feminine God. In the Talmud, because it's the Talmud and they like precision, the masculine bits are white, the feminine bits are red. It doesn't tell you which color the God bits are. But yeah, it's a nice way of looking at it, the 2 human beings plus the divine. Thank you. That's probably going to end up being said under somebody's chuppah at some point. Share wisdom with the rabbi, and it's always going to get shared again. Thank you. Let me send you off into breakout rooms for a little while. I warned last time, didn't I, that I wanted to bring the class in by 8:30. And I hope that I asked for communications to change the class timing and the publicity. I hope they did, because I want to make sure that you have some time together to share wisdom. So hold on a minute. Yes. In order for you to go into breakout rooms I have to share one more slide with you about how to cultivate friendship, how to nurture friendship. And again, this is pure Brooks. This is not Ecclesiastes. The first point he makes is that introverts are people who are capable of making friends, and extroverts are people who are not superficial. This is important because the preconceptions that we bring about I am such and such a kind of person can get in the way of a friendship, especially if it's going to be a friendship with someone who is not like you. If you are an introvert who's going to partner with an extrovert in friendship. Yeah, so both are capable. Second proposition is that it's not a friendship if you're just being useful to them or they are just being useful to you. Brooks doesn't mention it, but the man here is Martin Buber. If you've come across Buber, it's the difference between an I-it relationship, where you're in relationship with something for what you can get out of it or for what it can get out of you, and an I-thou relationship, which is what we're looking for with the true friend. That there is that quality of intimacy and exchange. He points out that friends don't always have to agree, and that's okay. And it feels to me that that is more relevant at these times than ever. One of the privileges of doing what I do is that people share heartbreak with me. And the more cantankerous our times have become, the more I am hearing about I've fallen out with so-and-so, I can't come to agreement. We were friends all my life, and then we had this conversation, and now they've ghosted me, and I don't know what I'll do, and how do I get the friendship back? It is possible within a true friendship to navigate differences of opinion and to hold them humbly. Brooks suggests, and Moses would agree, that the key is humility. But also, I think, going in, for those of you who've been coming to the dinner and dialogue sessions, and for those of you who haven't, the idea that friendship does not mean you agree about everything is an important thing to lift up. It's not like when you're small and your friend is the person that you do all the things you enjoy with. It's more complex when we're an adult, and if we're able to allow each other the fullness and the space to be able to humbly say, I don't agree, and I love you, the greater the space there is for happiness within it. He makes the point that a romantic relationship becomes durable when it turns into a friendship. That romance is very good for hour-and-a-half Hallmark movies, but doesn't go the long distance, and friendship does. And maybe the most important one, and the one I want to lift up, is the staying in touch. Because it is easy to let it drift. And it is easy also to translate it over into technology. Yeah, the number of friends who are staying in touch these days by liking each other's Facebook posts. That's going to degrade the friendship over the long term. With the spare time that we create by not beating up on ourselves and not wasting our energy pursuing stuff that isn't going to make us happy, the greater a chance we have of being able to use that time fruitfully and invest it in our friendships. So I'm going to leave that slide up for inspiration as I send you into your breakout rooms. But what I would love you to do is to share wisdom about your own strategies for initiating, cultivating, and preserving friendships. Let me see. I want to make sure that we've got 2 to 3 participants to a room. And I want to make sure that I don't put Joe and Razel in the same room again, because you're lovely and I'm sure you have very good conversations, but you can do that outside of a Zoom room. So let me share the, I'm going to give us 15 minutes. Is 15 okay? Yeah, 15. And I will put up again the slide with the friendship preservation or the work of friendship prompts, but please don't feel confined by them. Share your wisdom with each other. And I will see you soon. Sorry, I should have switched that on earlier. During COVID, being the rediscovering of friendships, the fact that the what do you call it? The distractions were taken away, seemed to feed or reseed the friendships. I'm seeing a thumbs up, Ilan. Is it a thumbs up or a hands up or both? Let's say.
I think it was directed to me from my breakout room a colleague.
Oh, how lovely.
Yeah.
Good. I like it, but I like it when there are multiple conversations in the room. That's good. I'm mindful of the time. Thank you for sticking with me for an hour and a half. It's nice not to be quite as frantic as I was last week. Any final thoughts, observations? I'm going to pop up a summary slide because, as always, we've covered quite a bit of ground. But any final thoughts, observations? Susan, yeah.
One of the things both of us had noticed, and I don't know if other people in the room feel that way, but as people in the boomers age group, it seems to have become harder and harder to make friends, especially as friends, disappear for one reason or another, or move, and that it's very difficult to make close friendships or even just good friendships as we get older.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably the case for all sorts of reasons. Yeah. Yeah.
I would say just a little bit of word. I live with Raisel's my wife, and she's like a master at maintaining friendships. It requires quite a bit of effort, but she's got a lot of energy, and she really does that. But I'm doing that a little better than I used to. I've got a little bit more time, but so I've made, you have to call people. You have to call people and say hello, and that's what it's all about. But the one thing, I had a very nice conversation with Nora, and I said to her, I also go swimming here, say at Culver swimming pool. And whenever you go swimming, I never get out of the pool and say, that was a bad idea to go swimming. You always feel better. And in general, after calling an old friend, I always feel better. I can't remember when I said, "Oh, that was a bad idea." I don't think I ever did that. So that's almost like a little wisdom or something, but something to think about. I it's basically, and my mother used to say, she'd call me and say, "Calling just to say hello." That was her line. And it's valid. It's good.
Lovely.
Pretty much it.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you, Joel. It's a good thought to, well, I was going to say it's a good thought to end on, but Ilan, let's take yours and you can be the ending thought.
I just wanted to add that it's not only boomers that have trouble keeping relationships. In my generation, we're all over the country or all over the world. Some people have families, some don't. So people have busy lives. And so at this age, also building and keeping relationships or making new friendships is, I think, also quite complex.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, yes. And of course, it's another situation where technology doesn't help. Technology makes it look like you've got tons and tons of friends, but the quality of it is not the same. The picking up the phone is something that Brooks actually recommends to keep that double and threefold cord going. So let me just summarize, because we have covered an enormous amount of ground in these 3 sessions with one more to go. We started out by questioning what makes us truly happy. For those of you who were here, we did a reverse bucket list. We made a list of things that we thought made us happy, and then we interrogated that list and discovered that maybe the things on it didn't make us as happy as we thought they did, and there were other things to do. Then we had a session, these next 2 points, on being able to widen the field, being able to step away, to change the habits that we have formed around thinking about happiness, what makes us happy, what do we expect will make us happy. So the ability to step back, to question our emotions, to create a space between the emotion and whether we're going to let ourselves be carried away by it, and the turning outwards, the running to do a mitzvah, if I can borrow Raisel's lovely wording there, that it is quite likely that it is our outward turning relationships that stand a greater chance of making us happy. Inward, so it's a paradox about metacognition, right? We're doing the work on ourselves, but ultimately it's for the purpose of turning outwards. We looked at 2 of the 4 pillars. We looked at imperfect families, and we talked about lasting friendships. And next time we will do the other 2. We will take a deep dive into work, and we'll take a deep dive into faith, and close out the course with a few thoughts about joy, is what I am thinking about, which is another one of those things that it's not, you know, when you get up close to it, it might not be quite what we thought it was from across the room. Does anyone want to offer a closing blessing? If not, I can.
I can say one.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay. So say, thank you, Hashem, for bringing this wonderful group of thoughtful, curious, and well-intentioned people together to think deeply about ways to connect.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. See you again soon, one way or the other.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
As we go out into the big bad world,
Thank you.
gently does it. Gently does it. Okay. And we'll see each other soon. God
Stay
Thank you.
well, everyone.
bye.
Bye.
Take care. God bless.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Take
You're
good care.
welcome. God bless.